What's up, Achievers? Welcome to Volume 14 of Rise. We're so excited to have you here. If you've been on Rise for a while, welcome to your next phase. It's like Christmas morning. And if you are new to Rise, don't be intimidated by the fact that we're on Volume 14. We always make sure that the new phase is adaptable for more experienced Risers as well as new Risers. So welcome to everyone who's watching this video. And today what I'm going to do is walk you through the general overview of what you're going to see in the program, give you some detailed descriptions and cues on some specific exercises that need a little bit more information, and kind of guide you through what to expect for Volume 14. All right, so I want to start just with the warm-up. So what you're going to see is that we have kind of a hip, adductor, inner thigh focus for this warm-up. We always kind of pick something to focus on. So for this one, I want to just show you a couple of these moves in a little more detail. So for the quadruped split stance, adductor, iso, breathing, which is a long way of just saying, coming down to hands and knees, bringing one leg out to the side, and then breathing. All right, but from here we have a couple options. So you can stay here. If you feel a really good stretch through your inner thigh here, that's great. We're just gonna stay here. We're gonna think about pointing your toes forward and keeping your foot flat. Now, I want you to just think about nice deep belly breaths. So we're trying to keep the breath out of your neck and out of your chest and try to fill your belly with air. Expand through your ribs, expand through your lower back and through your belly, and then breathe all the way out. Now, if this doesn't feel like much of a stretch and you kind of don't feel anything in that adductor, we can start by sitting back a little bit more. That's going to intensify that stretch. And then if that still doesn't feel like much, we can drop down to our elbows, and that'll intensify it a little bit more. So we don't want to be in a position where you're holding a lot of tension because it's so much of a stretch that it's making you tighten up and hold your breath. We want it to just feel like you're able to relax, but get a good little stretch in that inner thigh. Okay, so the second one I want to go over is the Cossack squat. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this one. Well, you'll notice that there's two options, either body weight or using something for assistance, so like a TRX to kind of hold on to, because it's a pretty deep stretch. So one option, you want to start out nice and wide. One option is kind of like I show in the video. You go off to one side, come up, and then off to the other. And you'll notice my toes come up and I kind of rotate that foot in order to get into that nice deep position. The other option is you stay low the whole time. So from here, you just shift right over to the other side. That's going to be probably a little bit more challenging, but it will probably allow you to start to sit a little bit deeper and deeper with each shift that you do. All right, so now I just want to go into the general overall focus of the program, which for the main lifts, what you're going to notice is we drop down from 6 reps with a 3-second eccentric lowering phase, last phase, to 5 reps with a isometric hold at some point. So for some of them, like a squat, you're gonna just hold at the bottom of that squat, the hardest portion of the move, 2 seconds, and then you'll stand up. For the deadlift, for instance, you're gonna go to your setup position. You're actually just gonna pause right before you lift. So get to the point where you're about to lift, but then pause, hold it for 2 seconds, and then stand up. So we're just focusing on really keying in on the part of the movement that we want to be really focused, really primed, because it's going to be probably the most challenging portion of that movement. All right, for the bench press, we'll be pausing right at the bottom. So you're going to see all of those isometric holds in there this phase and dropping down to 5 reps. Now, if you've been on Rise for a little while, you're going to notice how we typically say to pick an RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion, and then to increase by about 5 or 10 pounds, depending on the lift, week to week. So what I don't want you to really too much worry about is whatever you were doing last month, because it's just different. Right now, last month we were doing eccentrics, this month we're doing isometrics. It's just different, and so don't try to compare what you were doing last month on squats, for instance, to what you're gonna do this month. Try to refresh, reset your mind, and think about it in terms of rate of perceived exertion. So if you were doing 95 pounds at the end of last phase, it's okay if you start this phase at 85 or 90. It shouldn't probably be a huge drop off, but it's totally fine for it to be a little bit under what you ended on last phase. And for those of you who are on Rise Light, we've heard some requests for how to make deadlifts feel heavier when we get into these lower rep ranges. So we've added some options to add bands with dumbbells, so kind of incorporating both at the same time to try to increase the amount of weight that it feels like as you're going through some of these heavier lifts. All right, so now I want to go day by day through the program and pick out just a couple exercises from each day that I want to give you a little bit more information about. So the first one is going to be the power development exercise in day 1, and this is going to be, you're going to see a lot of different options. So if you're newer or you're just not into barbells or you're not into Olympic lifts, we're going to choose between either the box jump or the tall kneeling jump to squat position. I want to show you that tall kneeling jump to squat because it's just a little bit weird. It's going to feel new for a lot of you. And what you're going to notice is you just don't have the ability to get a lot of momentum like you do when you're standing. You can bend your knees and really swing your arms. When you're down here, we just don't have a lot of room to go. So we do want to hinge at the hips, and we really want to use our arms and our upper body to help propel us up. All right, so we're going to hinge back. We're going to go fast forward and land nice and low in that squat, and then you're just going to drop right back down to your knees. All right, this is definitely a challenging movement, and it requires a lot of mobility at the bottom of your squat. So if you don't feel comfortable at the bottom of the squat and you don't really feel confident there, I would recommend doing the box jump or even just a squat jump instead. All right, the next exercise I want to go over is the chest press. So you're going to see a couple different ways that you can put this one together, but I want to show you the shoulders elevated version and how to kind of set it up. So you'll notice that I got a box that's slightly lower than my bench. That's important because trying to get onto this bench with just your shoulders while holding a weight without being able to sit on something is going to be awkward and a little bit challenging. So if you can get something here, it could be a ball, like a medicine ball or something like that that you can sit on just to get yourself set. That'll be really helpful. So what you want to do is get the dumbbell kind of on your thigh, and then you're going to let yourself lean back, bring the dumbbell here, and raise those hips up. All right, the reason we want this lower than the bench is obviously because we want you to be able to raise your hips up without it touching whatever's underneath you. Shoulders down and back, and then we're pressing up and lowering back down, trying to make sure we're not rotating as we do that. All right, when you're ready to come down, sit your hips down and bring that weight back up. All right, and then that brings us to the finisher. So you're gonna see this one is time-based, so you're gonna wanna set a timer. If you are looking for a timer on your phone, Interval Timer is an app that works really well and it's free. You wanna set the timer for 60 seconds of work, 30 seconds of rest, but that 60 seconds of work is going to be split up into 3 different moves. So you have the dead start clean, the speed skaters, and then the crossbody mountain climbers. Now the only difference here is if you are using a single kettlebell for the dead start clean as opposed to the goblet, then you're going to skip the speed skaters and just do round 1 with the right arm, round 2 with the left arm, and then go into the crossbody mountain climbers. So just skip the speed skaters if that's the case for you. All right, so that brings us to day 2. So I want to go over just a couple moves from this day. The first one is the lateral squat. So if you're doing a lateral squat on the floor, kind of pretty self-explanatory, either a squat or a lunge with that low hold with the kettlebell, kind of tapping the floor and coming back up. If you're doing the foot elevated version, it's just a little bit different. So you're going to have that foot elevated on a small box. A low box like this is pretty good. You can either have the toes forward or slightly turned out, and then you're just going to kind of hop that other foot out so that you have a wide enough stance to give you some space to work with. And then from there, you're going to grab that kettlebell, you're going to sit your hips back, go toward the foot that's on the box, push the box away and come up to standing. All right, so you're sitting back and down with those hips and then pushing away from that elevated foot. All right, and then the other one from this day that I want to show you is the oblique drop set. So some of these exercises might be new to you, so I just want to give you a little bit more explanation. So the first one is the side hollow option. So you have a couple different options here. If you've never done these before, this is what I would recommend starting with. So you're getting into a side lying position. We want to be hollow. So the idea is we're making sure we're not actually completely straight, but thinking about connecting your ribs and your hips and getting into a slight hollow position. All right, not by just sending your feet out in front of you and your shoulders out in front of you, but actually thinking about connecting here just slightly. All right, then from there, you're going to raise your feet and your hand off the ground by thinking about now crunching your hip and your ribs toward each other here. Up and back down. All right, and so just those raises to start with. Now if those start to feel comfortable, you can go up and hold and then do that for as long as possible. And if the holds start to feel good and you're comfortable there, you can go into a side hollow rock. So getting into that hold position and then doing this slight rock side to side, shoulder off the ground, then hip off the ground, using that top hand for a little bit of stability there. So you're going to do as many as possible of the lifts or as long as possible with the hold or the hollow rocks on each side. Then you're going to stand up and do the rotational press out. So you can do this with a kettlebell or a dumbbell, whatever works for you, but ideally it's going to be pretty light. We want this to be not too heavy because that press out movement is going to be pretty challenging. So you're going to bring the weight up to your chest here if you're holding a kettlebell in this goblet position. You're going to rotate and pivot that outside foot, press, back to the middle, pivot and press. So you're kind of doing that simultaneously. So as you pivot and rotate your hips, you're pressing out and switching. All right, we're gonna do 6 on each side. Now, if your weight, you just don't have the right amount of weight and it's too heavy, we can just do a smaller press out. You don't have to go all the way to elbows locked. The main idea is to keep those ribs stacked over your hips so that you're not arching as you're pressing away. All right, let's move on to day 3. So for day 3, I want to go over the TGU press variation. So we have 3 different options for you. You can press from the elbow, the hand, or the bridge, and I want to show you what that looks like from each position. So if you've never done a Turkish get-up before, I'm just going to go over a brief explanation of the setup. If you're going to press on the right side, you're going to roll onto your right side, have the kettlebell to the right of you, slide your hand through so that it's in the crease here of your thumb, and then grip with your wrist nice and straight. Now from there, you're going to roll to your back and press the weight overhead. The right arm and knee stay up while the left arm and leg come out to the side. All right? Then we're going to go pressing into the floor with this heel up to the elbow. That's going to be the first step. Now, if you're new, I would recommend just going to here. You're going to think about pushing into the floor with this bottom arm. We don't want to shrug that bottom shoulder. This is the arm that's holding the most amount of weight in this scenario. So really press into the floor and get nice and strong there. And then from there, you're going to pull that elbow down and then press back up. And you'll notice I'm kind of following it with my eyes and keeping my shoulder pulled back as I lower down. We want to make sure that you're not letting the shoulder shrug or round forward in any way. It's going to pull the kettlebell out in front of you. It's going to feel really awkward. Shoulders down and back. Press it up like so. Now you can do that exact same movement, but from the hand. This is going to be a little bit more of a vertical press than from the elbow. And then of course we can go from the bridge. That'll be a just more challenging overall variation because you're having to use your glutes and hips to stabilize and really press into the floor with that bottom hand as you go through these presses. All right, so lots of options for you there. All right, then I want to go over the 2 dumbbell momentum straight arm pull down. So you're going to get set up in a bent over position like you're going to do a bent over row. So sending your hips back with your back nice and flat. And then from here, you're going to let the dumbbells swing out in front of you just a little bit, and then you're going to swing them back, hold as long as you can, and then back out in front of you. Hold as long as you can, back out in front of you. And it will feel like you're trying to hold it for a long time, but it's only going to be a second or 2 if you film yourself. That's fine. The intention is just to hold it, really squeeze that tricep, squeeze those lats, and get a good squeeze at the back before letting them come back forward, as opposed to making it just a momentum and swingy type of motion. All right, and then the last thing I want to show you in day 3 is the tight rotation. You're going to see this at the end of the finisher. It's going to be swings plus a tight rotation. It's going to feel and look a little bit funny, but it's actually really effective. So you're going to get your feet a little bit wider than hip width, slight bend in your knees, clasp your fingers out in front of you, or you can push them together, whichever feels better. And then you're going to go quick side-to-side motions without letting your hips rock side to side or your shoulders rock side to side. So you're thinking about everything staying connected and tight as you go side to side, and it's going to feel like a lot of core action, even though it's not a big movement. All right, and that brings us to day 4. Day 4 is our hybrid day, where we kind of incorporate some strength moves, a little bit of volume work, and then some HIIT work at the end. All right, so for the strength moves, I do want to go over the box squat. It's just a little bit of a different variation from what you might be used to with squats. We can do this with a barbell, kettlebells, dumbbells. We kind of have a lot of options here. I have a kettlebell with me, so I'll just show you with that. And what we're thinking about here is we're able to maintain, because the box is behind us, we're able to maintain more of a vertical shin. So we're going to make this a little bit more hamstring and glute involved here. So we're going to really sit back. Your shins stay pretty vertical. Once you get down to the box, then you allow yourself to come up to a more upright position. This kind of takes away that stretch reflex, and then you really have to drive into the floor to stand up. You can come forward just a little bit to assist you, and then stand all the way up tall. All right, so it's vertical shins all the way to the bottom, come all the way up to a tall seated position, and then some slight movement forward is okay. Stand up nice and tall. Then when we get to our volume segment, you're going to see a constant tension split squat. So I just want to show you what that's going to look like. So you're going to basically have more of your weight shifted forward onto this front leg. You're going to still drop that back knee down, and then you're going to come up just before locking out and go right back down. So it's nice and smooth. It's actually a suitcase, so you'll have your weight here. It's just nice and smooth down and up without actually standing all the way up and locking out that knee. All right, you're going to start to feel a good little burn in those legs as you continue going through. All right, so that is it for volume 14 of Rise. We're so excited to have you. And if you are new and you haven't joined our Facebook group yet, definitely make sure to join the Achievers group. It's linked right underneath this video, and you can go in there, ask questions, post videos, request feedback. The group is super supportive, and everybody will be happy to hear from you. So we're excited to have you go through this volume, and we look forward to seeing your videos soon.